Great. So I'd like to welcome everybody to this month's topic with the ELRC. So this month we're looking at creation care and how that relates to mission. And we've had some articles, some LDX has put out, and this moment is basically for us to have a little chat about what we've seen, what we've read, and bring some thought and opinion to that, which hopefully will be helpful to you guys out there who are watching. I have a wonderful group of people who are joining me. I will briefly introduce them, and I will do that based on what my screen is showing. So I'll start by introducing Jean-Pete, or JP is his name. He's a very good friend of mine, and I would consider him an elder to some of the work that we do.
Wow.
So, yeah, I would. And I really value having him a part of this discussion. Off to the other side of me is Mariëtte, who is one of the location leaders up here in Scotland, in Paisley, where I'm now based, and I've really valued her input and welcoming us as a team and helping us to form a creation care hub up in this area. And if I go down my screen, I've got Franzi, who I worked with for many years in Harpenden, and is a very, very dear friend of mine. And I'm just really excited to have her as a part of this discussion. Franzi has a real passion for young people and helps to lead DTSs where she's based down in Homestead. And then just off to the other side, we've got Richard, who is based in Switzerland, in Brittany, and again has been kind of thinking about some of this stuff for many years, and myself and the rest of the team here have gleaned a lot of wisdom from Richard and really valued his insights when we've had those discussions. So I just want to welcome all of you to this, and thank you all for being willing to participate. And yeah, I'm really excited about kind of being able to have a little chat and discuss some of the material which we've seen. So I was wondering, JP, maybe if you wanted to start and just share something which you found quite maybe new or inspiring from the material which you've looked at.
Yeah, maybe the first thought that comes to my mind is the thought of humility. So my generation, I think, we've had this huge blind spot for caring for creation as a Christian and as a generation. And yesterday I was watching somebody in the climate march in Brussels who said, you know, my generation, we've messed it up for the coming generation. So I think, especially for me, humility is the starting point for everything good that we can do in this world, you know, starting by confessing, by acknowledging we've missed God in this. We've not understood properly our mandate to care for creation. So yeah, that we first thought I'd like to share.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Does anyone want to kind of respond to that or feed off of that?
I think that really struck me as I sat with a different material, but also I think it struck me as how we've managed to do stuff in Brittany as well, in terms of it's super tricky to understand the complexity of all this environmental stuff, and then it's very easy to get overwhelmed and be passive. Especially because there's so much else going on, leading a YWAM community, traveling and doing stuff like that. But that humility is not just a backwards piece, but a forwards piece as well, in terms of just humbly coming to the Lord and saying, okay, what are the things that we could do? What is possible? And sitting with him in that process as well. So that also struck me in the material, but in a much more forward-looking way as well, going, okay, it's not just that we need to kind of repent and be soft-hearted, especially if we're a little bit older, because we've stuffed it up, but also moving forward, I just need Jesus to help me figure this out, and I need to listen to so many people around me, because there's so much I don't know, but it's okay. It's not like the end of the world that I don't know. I can be on this kind of very humble journey of discovery.
Well, that's really good. Mariëtte, did you have anything which struck you looking at the material?
Yeah, I think what I realized is that this is really like a community project, you know, like it's of course an individual choice, but the real effects of it are there when we work together on this as a community, and when we let others speak into our practices around it, and when we reach out with it. So I feel it's really something that can bring us together as well. But it's not easy to do this alone. So you really need to feed off each other and be inspired by each other. And that's also where the effect is the biggest. Yeah,
and I think you're putting the finger on the sore spot there, Mariëtte, because you're pointing to our individualism in our culture and wanting to be autonomous and self-providing, whatever, and that has caused so much of the problems of abuse of creation and a lack of care for the place that God has given us, you know. So it requires really a change, not just individually, but also a change in the way our culture thinks and operates, much more community thinking rather than individualism thinking.
Yeah.
That's really good. Really good fallback, JP. Franzi, was there anything for you out of the material which you're like, oh, that's interesting, or
I think when I read the story of kind of your son saying, oh, this with the puddle, and like that one drop kind of makes a difference to the puddle, I think that was kind of interesting to think, because often it is easy to get overwhelmed and like to, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this, but like even kind of my little part that I can do is so important. It will change something, and it's not kind of unseen. And I think that was really encouraging because it's just so vast and so big. But yeah, I think that was really kind of a new kind of reminder for me to actually keep going and to do all this, I think.
Yeah, I often learn a lot from my kids, even though they're like 6 and 4. They have such an interesting perspective on the world because it's unfiltered, and the things they share kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, right.
It's true.
Yeah, I think with that it can be overwhelming. I think it must have been somewhere where I read it, that you just start with one thing, and then you have that down, and then you add another thing, and then you add another thing, and then you add another thing. So it's not like 20 things at once, but you start maybe by buying sponges from an eco brand rather than your plastic ones, and then the next time you start filling your washing liquids at a local store instead of buying new plastic bottles. And then once you've done that and you come across something new, you think like, oh, someone said last year at COP, like, we try to buy less fruit or no, I think they did no fruit that came with flying in from other continents. So when I'm shopping, I'm trying to, have a look at the labels, like where is it coming from? And that's quite interesting. And so you add small things all the time, and then it becomes like a whole set of things that you're doing, and it's starting to make an impact.
Yeah, and what along with that, what Christy, I think, also was sharing is that when this is a way to love God and to love your neighbor, it becomes much more from an intrinsic motivation that's empowering it, rather than rules that are sort of legalistically and in a moralizing way put on you. It's something where you begin to experience the joy of it. Yeah.
Richard, did you have something to
Yeah, only to add that some of those things become patterns and behaviors as well. So like we've been in Switzerland for 25 years. There's a whole way we recycle here, which is a very beautiful thing. And it just feels normal. So then I go to say some countries where that system doesn't exist, and I'm like, okay, I literally have brought PET plastic bottles back from Africa because I couldn't bear to throw it away. So I've brought rubbish home with me because I'm like, I know it'll be recycled in Switzerland. But it's no longer, it's not just, it's the right motivation, but it's also a pattern.
Yeah.
So that it isn't heavy. And I think that's how growth works, right? That's how discipleship works. As we grow in something, those things become our new normal. So it isn't stacking more and more things into your hands, so you've got this massive pile of things. You're behaving in that way because it's how you've learned to do things. Yeah. We've renovated a bunch of buildings. One of our amazing gifts to us in the base here is we've got all these amazing old Swiss buildings, and what began as, okay, how can we renovate them? Sort of over that lifetime of growing in that with amazing people teaching me how to do that, that conversation around how do we do that ecologically, what does that look like, little by little you add in more and more nuance to there's no way you can imagine doing something that wasn't well insulated, wasn't heated ecologically. It's just like it becomes almost abhorrent to think about that. But that's like a 20-year process, and the drip in the puddle is where you begin. You do the next drip, and you don't worry about the next 20 years. You know, I can change the level today by doing one thing. But it does become a pattern, and then suddenly you look around yourself and you go, actually, there's loads to go, but we've done amazingly. So
true. Yeah,
that's really good. I think it's similar with my journey. So my background is conservation and habitat restoration, and it wasn't until till Christy started looking at some of this stuff as well, who I'm married to, but she brought a whole different perspective to some of my background and understanding, and it widened my view of, oh, this is important, but it's important for different reasons as well as just my training in ecology and restoring habitats and ecosystems. So, and also this sense of, well, what have we missed then? And where have we missed a step with who God is and what his character's like and how we relate to him? But it's this long journey of slow discoveries of sort of God revealing a little bit and not making it so overwhelming that it's crushing, but making it challenging enough that you go, I do need to do something about this. I think that's one of the beauties we have as people who follow Jesus, is he challenges us enough to get us to move, but doesn't do it in such a way that completely crushes us and discourages us from even wanting to try. And I think as we grow in our communities and we grow as a mission, that's one of the challenges we have in discipling the DTS trainees, second level school individuals who are coming through our mission, and then long-term staff members as well who are coming into our different communities.
Yeah, I think that caring for creation should be always integrated in the way we think and the way we do mission, not just for our own kind of work and everything, but also that we always think about, okay, so many people in the world suffer because of the climate changes right now, especially the people who have contributed, whose nations have contributed the least. But that we don't just see that as a problem, but that we begin to see that as an opportunity to share the love of God, to share the care of Jesus for people. And that clean water, clean air, cleaning up plastic, cleaning up rivers, all of these things begin to, instead of being overwhelming problems, with God, they can begin to look like enormous opportunities. And I think that's where our faith really comes into play. What you know, like you say, knowing God.
Mm.
Yeah.
So my greatest passion isn't creation care, it's agriculture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the two are intrinsically linked. I'd love that Ben mentioned Genesis 2:15, the whole Abad and Shema thing of taking care of the land. But I've been incredibly blessed to run across a tool called Farming God's Way, and then the team here in Burton translated it into French, so we've used that in West Africa, and it's an amazing system that works really well in areas where the climate is kind of tricky. So we're using it in Mali quite a bit, and it, you know, you're literally saving lives, teaching people how to farm when climate is precarious. And it's the easiest evangelism that I've ever done, and I'm a rubbish evangelist. But then sitting with my friends and that community and just talking about Jesus and how he cares and how he understands and how he sees the climate, and then just walking through the forest or the Sahel with them and just, you know, explaining some of those environmental things, and you're just like, this, I mean, it's just God in real life, engaged in the environment. It's not a science trip or a good idea, it's just the heart of God, and he's passionate about those communities who were struggling. And I shall stop because I could talk for about 3 hours about that. But you see that when you're out there and you talk about a good evangelism tool, I'm like, yeah, because it's the heart of God for those communities who were struggling, and he has answers.
Yeah, exactly. That's so beautiful.
And I feel that is, not the same, of course, because it's totally different situation. But I think this is not like something that is not connected with evangelism in Scotland either, or any other situation, because this is something that really people care about, and it came up in the material, I think, as well. You know, like there's plenty of anxiety around it because of a lack of perspective. But I think this is. This is something that we need to know about because God cares, you know. So for me, having the Creation Care Hub with Phil, Ben, and Christy on our team and doing I don't know if you are aware, but the climate conference was in Glasgow, so that's very close to where we are. And we've engaged as a team with it and hosted an outreach where Franzi was on, and JP came to visit, and Phil was leading the outreach. But yeah, those things, they made us really aware, but it also offered a lot of opportunities. And that's, again, I think what you said, Richard, about it doesn't need to be an extra burden. Now, if you just, you know, start to understand, you can really do your work from that perspective, and it's not an extra burden, it's just a burden, it's an extra opportunity. You can really relate well through creation care with the public and with each other, and it really brings a lot of conversations very natural also with neighbors and in town. So yeah, I see a lot of chances that it gives us to be able to host this Creation Care Hub in our location.
Yeah.
My wife likes to go litter picking around the area, and she's probably got to know a lot of the mums around the place because she bumps into them and chats to them a lot better than she would have done if she hadn't done that. And some of them now come and join her. So it opens up and offers a place of relationship to develop for those kind of deeper conversations, which often come out of it.
Yeah, Rachel Pudiogo, who works in West Africa, you know her, shares how in a certain community, a Muslim village, how the children had to take the herds of animals farther and farther away because there's no grass. And when they started to replant the trees and everything, the local climate started to change, and the children could stay closer to home. And so it freed them up for going to school, and it opened the opportunity to start a school with good material. I mean, that is kingdom of God stuff. Everything is connected. The climate is not a separate thing from discipleship and evangelism and all these things. It's all connected. Yeah.
I was wondering if, just a throw question out there, seeing people come into communities through DTSs, some of you have been around a bit longer than others within some of that. What have you noticed the questions being sort of more recently coming up from people? Does that make sense as a question?
I think Franzi knows that.
Can you maybe say the question again?
Yeah, with people coming into our schools, DTSs, and things like that more recently, what are some of the questions and things that they carry? I mean, we talked a little bit about anxiety, but where have you seen some of that expressed, and maybe where is there an opportunity to speak into some of that as we disciple the generations which are coming after us?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest question is like, okay, what can I do? And I think like, for example, being in the COP, that was, I think for the DTS that was there, that was really, really helpful, and like helpful to see that so many people care, because I think they didn't really think, well, not, yeah, I was included in that. Like I didn't really know that was such a big thing before I came to the COP. So I think the biggest question is for like, and also we have always like international people, so every country does different things. So like the States do it very differently than Europe, or like Germany, for example, does it quite differently than England as well. And I think, yeah, the biggest question is, okay, how can we, like, what is my part in all this? And I think showing them, okay, we can actually litter pick, for example, like as an outreach in the week, like that, like just little steps that they're actually doable and like they're not really hard in a sense. I think is a good eye opener for them, and like that it's not, yeah, that you don't have to start like really big, but like I think the small steps, as you guys said already, like I think kind of opening them like the eyes that kind of works, and that is yeah, a start of something, and obviously that needs to continue and not just stay there, but like there's, I think, yeah, that we can provide a start for them in that sense. I don't know.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Well, that's really good. Thank you, Franzi.
Yeah, creation care should be part of the very basic of discipleship, isn't it? We often talk about discipleship in the 4 relational dimensions, the human relational dimensions with God, with the community and social level, with ourselves, and with creation. And if one of those dimensions is overemphasized, it usually goes at the cost of one of the others. And so that's why it's really important to keep all 4 in perspective from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Richard, did you have something to?
Yeah, it wasn't a DTS student. I actually met a 20-something-year-old girl at a murder mystery party. It wasn't a believer, nice. And it was a great night out. And I almost figured it out. But anyway, she came up to the base and had coffee with me, and she was just super passionate about food and food justice, and then just a fascinating conversation about kind of food deserts in the US and areas where it's just super difficult to buy non-processed food at reasonable prices. So depending where you are, that US grows huge amounts of food, and you can get amazing food if you're in the right places. And then there are inner city areas where you just don't have access to fresh produce. And just, I think that's like a very concrete conversation about how do we do this sustainably. How do we regenerate our soils? That's, I mean, like, you run across the conversation that you're passionate about, right? But I think that is a really real conversation that's going on in the world as well. It's not just climate, it's also that kind of sustainable food, low carbon, mild food, all that kind of conversation. And I think there just loads of resources out there for that kind of stuff. And then Tom Bloomer, who is Provost Emeritus of the University of the Nations, lives in our village, and he's having these amazing prophecies. They're a little bit frightening though, because they're all about 7 hard years for Europe. And like, he had this prophecy about hard years are coming just before COVID, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's the thing. But that conversation led to, in the kind of evangelical church in Switzerland, okay, how would we do food if the food system broke down? Because that was one of his things, which is just a deeply humbling conversation, because all our farmers were like, well, you couldn't, because you just cannot produce enough. So like a really deep conversation about, okay, but how can we do farming differently? How can we honor those farmers? Because it's super easy to throw stones. And really explore with them, standing with that. It's like 1 or 2% of a industrialized nations involved in farming, but without them, we're stuffed. So what does it look like to intercede for them? What does it look like to, pray in a generation of Josephs who fed Egypt in the middle of a disaster? Where are those guys? So there's some there's niche things like that where I think God is looking to raise up disciples. And then, again, like I say, I think you run into people you can stand with. So fairly often I end up having those kind of conversations with people, but that's kind of what my training is and where I've been ministering. So, but they're all, I'm sure random engineer people have conversations with people like that as well, but I don't have that. So
I just want to draw something out which you said in the middle of what you were just saying there, Richard, about not throwing stones. I think as a people of God, people who follow Jesus, it's so important not to be not to judge for me, for generations that should come before me, or judge how people have made decisions and all the rest of it, but give them the grace and pray, but allow God to speak into how do we move from what has happened to where we need to go, so that we can provide food if things collapse like that. And one of the stories which kind of challenged me and inspired me, as an individual named Catherine Hayhoe, who's a climate communicator and a scientist in the States, but she was invited to speak to the big petroleum industries at some point. She was like, well, God, how do I do this? Because what I've been saying is against what they do. And God said to her, well, you need to start with humility. You need to start in a place where you say, thank you for all the effort you made to make energy cheaper and more affordable for the general people, to improve their standard of living. That's been a great season, but now is time to move into a new season, as opposed to going in there saying you are the problem. And I think as we continue to disciple and journey together, I think that's probably going to be one of our bigger challenges as well, is to go to discern what that is and be able to move forward in a place of thank you for what you have achieved. Now there's a season where we need to make some changes and shift, so that what happens as we move forward is sustainable, is something which will benefit the generations to come in the long term from us. We have the ability to innovate. We have the greatest creator in all the universe as a part of our resource. We just need to spend that time to ask him, well, what are your ideas? Because God is full of them, as I'm sure you've discovered, Richard, with farming stuff. So, are there any last thoughts before we wrap up? Anyone want to share anything else?
Maybe it's because I'm leading a basin where one of the words to a Lord, word of the Lord to us in this season is finish our buildings, and we've got 6 more to renovate. But just, I think it was Ben talked about daring to dream big as well. So, you know, we talked about donors being willing to give solar panels if you're re-roofing a building. It's stuff like that, and our experience has been that is really true.
Yeah,
there's a place where we can minimize who we are and make ourselves too small, but then, you know, the faith to go big as well is also really important. I think not in a like, not to get stuck and be overwhelmed. It's like I need to do everything, but there are moments. So like we've changed most of our buildings over to a district heating system, which is wood fired from our local sustainable forest. So instantly we've dealt with sort of 30% of our carbon footprint. It cost a whole bunch of money, but we sort of went, okay, we know that over the next 15 years, all these oil burners will be replaced. Let's just go now because the village is doing this. And so we're a third of that project. It felt like a big deal at the time, but the money came in.
Yeah.
And so I mean, and then of course we look super green and super sustainable, and it's great, but it also took a courage and faith to pounce on that opportunity. And I think it's one of those moments when you lean in. I love, Lauren said, go as far as you can, then lean towards Jesus. If he cares about creation, you can do so much, and then you can go, okay, Jesus, I dare you is totally the wrong heart, but you know what I mean? You trust him almost. You lean towards him and say, okay, well, we want to be sustainable. This is an amazing opportunity, but oh my goodness, it's like so much money. But okay, we lean towards you in this lack, and just seeing God come through for us in places like that. So there's a hope thing where we need to not minimize God in this surroundings. That's quite a mundane example because we just joined in with something, but I feel like in the mission, we've got the capacity to innovate big time if people will take kind of crazy risks with Jesus, like really go to the edge and then lean towards him. And I think, you know, we start small, do the little you can, but also I think dream big, because we have a big God who cares about this stuff.
Exactly. And I think also, I hope that when we have an creation care forum coming up in January, I expect a lot of YWAMers to come there with whatever they have in their hands. I think a lot of YWAMers have done education, they have experiences, they've done projects that are underutilized. And I think we can pray that they will come and bring those, you know, to the table. If, like what Mariëtte says, if we work together, there's tremendous opportunities. You know, the Rachel Pudiugos in West Africa, man, she is cooperating with this project of planting the Great Green Wall there all the way across Africa. I mean, not in her, she does her little thing, you know, but so courageous. Yeah, we can collaborate with her and cheer her on and help her and fund her. You know, there's when we work together is huge opportunities.
Great. Well,
So maybe remind us again, Phil, about this meeting, this creation care meeting that you're planning in January. What was that again?
so yeah, really quick plug here. We are looking to do a forum for creation care, so people from across YWAM globally be able to come together, connect with each other, meet each other, and hopefully from their relationships and innovation and ideas will come. And it's not specifically for people to say, I'm into creation care. It's an opportunity for people to bring, like JP said, bring what they have to the table, and go, oh, you're doing that as well over there. Oh, that's really interesting. Let me pick your brains. Let me hear what you've discovered, and just trying to be a bridge builder, and trying to facilitate that connection. Because I think YWAM is an amazing organization, but sometimes we miss each other because we are so decentralized. But when we come together, God really speaks and does something really special. And yeah, I just want to see that happen more and more. So but yeah, I think that's a really good spot to leave. I think that challenge there from Richard to dream big is a really, really good, I think a really good challenge to finish on. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me, and thank you everyone else for being willing to spend some time to listen to us have a conversation. So yeah.